Good morning, folks. What we're going to cover today is 6 tips for faster, safer drowning victim recoveries. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in. You can type them in the screen. I'll receive them, then at the end of the presentation, I'll go ahead and answer questions that you folks have. My name is Tom Crossmon. I'm a 30-year veteran and former captain of St. Louis County Sheriff's Rescue Squad based out of Duluth, Minnesota. St. Louis County is roughly 7,000 square miles and extremely rural. We only have 250,000 residents, and of that 7,000 square miles, about 93% of that is uninhabited, so it's very rural. We have 850 inland lakes, and then the western tip of Lake Superior that we cover. I recently retired after 25 years with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I then started with VideoRay a week later and taken over the law enforcement public safety sales. Statistics for drowning victims located with the VideoRay ROVs. With St. Louis County and as a private consultant, I have been involved in a couple dozen drowning homicide victim recoveries using VideoRay, on average about 2 a year, and hundreds of searches over my 30-plus year career, including searches for evidence, boats, aircraft, and shipwrecks. Topics we're going to cover: right tools in the toolbox. Equipment is organized, tested, immediately mobile. All personnel are experienced and trained. Knowing your role. Personnel safety rules in place. Be prepared for the recovery. Right tools in the toolbox. The proper technology and gear. ROV system, submersible with integrated control box, tether, and accessories. A power source. I use the Honda 2000 watt small generator. Really small, compact, quiet, really easy to use. A standard power outlet, marine battery with inverter works well also. Other accessories that you might need, in summertime, you'll want to have a boat of some sort, and the type of boat would vary depending on what your conditions are, whether it's a river or a small lake, a large lake like Lake Superior. Wintertime might be a snowmobile or a hovercraft or an airboat. We've even had to use rappelling gear to have people rappel into mine pits in northern Minnesota with the ROV strapped to their chest, and then they manage the tether for us at the water's edge, and then we operate the ROV from a safe distance away. So depending on your situation, there's many different things that you might need, and only you would know that. Equipment is organized, tested, immediately mobile. This is really important. It can be the difference between doing just a recovery or maybe a rescue. And I'll give you an example of that here in a minute. But if you can set up an deployment, an ROV can be set up and deployed in 5 to 10 minutes. If everything is ready to go, I've had my system in the water in under 3. Plan for organization, tether handling, utilizing space efficiently. In 2013, I had a call for a 13-year-old child in Lake Superior that had swam out to a concrete structure, played on the structure with some friends. On his way back, went subsurface. When I got on scene with my Chevy Tahoe rescue vehicle, people were pointing. We had firefighters in the water in Mustang suits, and they're pointing to a location. I grabbed my ROV, which is all set and ready to go, had it plugged in and operational in like 3 to 3 minutes. Deployed it, and we were able actually to do a rescue using the ROV. Brought the boy out of the water alive. He was resuscitated. Ended up passing away 24 hours later. But just by having that tool there and organized, we were able to get it in the water and get him out of the water alive. So you know, we don't sell this as a rescue tool. It's a recovery tool, but the option's always there. Anything can be a rescue tool if the circumstances are right. And that day, the circumstances were right for the ROV. So I wouldn't not consider it. All personnel are experienced and trained. This is really important, that everybody on scene that's working in your system has a good understanding of everybody else's job on scene. And what we like to do is we rotate through every 30 to 40 minutes. So everyone should be fully trained on the equipment. The person managing the tether should have a good idea of what the ROV should look like, where your tether runs, how your strain relief runs off the back of the ROV, what it should look like when it comes out of the water. Just the very basic things so people understand it. Understand basic principles of the SAR operation. Understand the task at hand and the role. And if you're rotating through every 30 to 40 minutes, everybody's getting to do every job. We generally have a 3-person crew that works. One person's managing tether, one person is operating the ROV, and the third person's operating the boat. We will also include a 4th person for reliefs. So if you have 4 people in there, one person's always taking a break, just being able to relax their eyes a little bit from watching those screens. That gets very tiring to the eyes. So if you want to have 4 people in that system, that works well too. What you don't want is too many, because then it gets chaotic. And then egos come into play, and everybody's got an opinion, and if we can just minimize that as much as possible. Know your role. If you are the tether handler, then don't try and be the ROV pilot at that time. If you're the ROV pilot, don't try and be the tether handler. Know your role. If you're the ROV pilot, that's what you're doing, and of course you're working together with the other folks that are there, but you're not trying to do their job. So you have the ROV pilot, the handler who is managing your tether for you, and maintenance. Challenges in coordinating with multiple organizations. This can be challenging because people sometimes don't know who's ultimately in charge. And one of the first things I do when I get in a scene is I'll ask, whose scene is this? You know, we're called into other jurisdictions. And each state is different on who handles these things. Sometimes that might be the local police department. Sometimes it might be the sheriff's office. Here in Minnesota, the sheriff's office, anything related to water is handled by the sheriff's office. So I would know in Minnesota that if I show up in a scene, it would be the sheriff's office for that county that we're in. But it's always good to ask that question. Don't be afraid to ask it, just so you know that when you're talking to someone, if they're telling you to do something, if it's ultimately their decision, or if you should double check that with the person who is ultimately in charge. Personnel safety rules in place. You want to be sure that people that are on the scene are doing things safe. They're wearing a PFD, they're dressed for the weather. Divers are watching their maximum dive time, temperature restrictions. Don't be afraid to call people on that. If you see somebody jump on a boat, people will tend to get kind of tunnel vision on these scenes. They're excited, and they want to do the right thing, and then sometimes they forget about some of the basics like safety. So they see somebody jump on a boat and they don't have on a personal flotation device, just go ahead and mention it to them. I don't think in most scenes people aren't trying to do things unsafe, but it's easy to get complacent. So go ahead and ask people about that. Hey, geez, you know, do you have your PFD? And most people are very good at putting it on. If they're not, then you might have to get a little bit more force with them. You don't want anybody out on a boat that doesn't have a PFD on. We don't want to lose life as they're searching for lost life. It just doesn't make good sense. Be prepared for the recovery. Having the right equipment, personnel in place, knowing the proper procedure, understanding the victim's probable condition, position. You know, if this person's been down a long time, the decomposition may be well started. What's their positioning? Are you going to bring them up with the ROV? Are you going to put a diver in the water? How do you want to do this? And this is a good time just to hit the pause button a minute and talk to the people that are involved. Okay, how do you want to do this? Talk to the person that's in charge of the scene. Is this a possibility of it being a homicide? Is there more work that we have to do down there before we move the victim? All things that need to be considered and talked about before that body gets moved. Securing the scene from bystanders and the media to protect the victim's decency. This is really important. It's real easy, and we get kind of callous to what we're doing. It's just another day at work for us. But for people that are involved, this is a major event in their life, and we most certainly don't want to make it any worse by us not being sensitive to their needs and to the family and friends. So we want to be sure that we're protecting that scene and not letting media take pictures and having that on the 10 o'clock news. Here's a case study of a search we did on Lake Superior under ice search in January 2014. We received a call from the Duluth Police Department to come and assist them with a possible suicidal person. We searched the immediate area of Brighton Beach, which is a park in the city of Duluth on the north shore of Lake Superior. Water temp was 37 degrees. Ice thickness was unpredictable. We had about 100 feet of ice out into the lake, and then it was open water from that point. What we did have is the missing person's vehicle. After a search of the shoreline and the ice, we did find footprints, keys, wallet, and cell phone were the only evidence left at the scene. We did see where he had paced up and down the ice there, looking into the water, and we could tell where he entered the water. And an immediate search of that didn't produce him, so we knew that he must have swam for some distance. We deployed a canine to give us a better search location. The dog indicated in fairly close proximity to where we ended up finding the person. Once the dog indicated, we then went ahead and put in the ROV and searched that immediate area, and we did locate him by video. We then used the manipulator on the ROV, grabbed a hold of the person's clothing, and pulling on the tether, we brought the ROV and the victim to the surface. A deep water search. We just conducted a deep water search out in Fremont Lake in Wyoming, May of this year. Max depth was 650 feet of water. It was a search for 3 homicide victims in Fremont Lake. This is a 1980 missing person case with a man serving prison time for the murder of his ex-wife and 2 stepsons. We were searching between 425 and 650 feet in depth using side scan sonar and then checking targets with the VideoRay Pro 4 and Blueview sonar. The side scan sonar was used to locate targets. After locating targets of interest, we would deploy the VideoRay and reacquire the same target using the Blueview sonar on the VideoRay and proof that target with the video on the VideoRay. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can either just get right over the top of the target and go straight down and reacquire it. You can also use a basket. We use milk crates and can move them closer and closer to the target and then re-image it with the side scan and then follow the line down that goes to those crates, just so you're sure that you are checking the exact same target that the side scan operator is imaging. Last thing you want to do is clear a target, and it turns out you're not on the exact same target that they were imaging. So if you use this basket method, you are absolutely certain that you've got the basket next to the target that the side scan operator wants search. Go ahead and deploy and check that out. There's an image of me operating on that search. Wide area and high current. It was called to Bethel, Alaska in January 2015. There were 3 people that were on an all-terrain vehicle in December and in the Alaska Yukon Delta. Roads are virtually inaccessible during the winter, and there are no real roads into Bethel. You have to fly into Bethel or come up by the river. So in the winter, the river is basically their main road. That's how you get in and out of Bethel unless you fly. The search area was roughly 3 square miles. Searched unsuccessfully for 5 weeks before using the ROV. ROV located the victim within 4 days. That victim that we located was 900 feet from the last known position, which is where the all-terrain vehicle went in. The first victim was located that evening, frozen to the edge of the ice. The third victim, we believe, was in the, there was lots of logs and debris along the shoreline. It was really risky for us to put the ROV in there, not being able to get right over the top of it. So we didn't venture too far into that, and she was recovered this spring after the ice was out. Here's a good photo of the search area, and you can get an idea for the size of it looking at the people on the left-hand side of the screen. Extreme conditions. Wind chill exceeded at times minus 40, and the current reaching 6 knots. And the tide of the ocean affected the current. At high tide, the current would be much less, down to maybe 3 or 4 knots. At low tide, about 6 knots. So it was extremely challenging. And once we had located the missing person that we found with the ROV, we had to kind of time it with the tide to be able to operate effectively. So we waited for high tide so the current wasn't as strong. Here's an image of the sonar image of the drowning victim, and you'll see between the rings there, ring 1 and 2, you can see the victim pretty clear at the base of a drop-off in the river. The river was had a max depth in our search area of 46 feet deep, and he was right in that max depth area. And he was 900 feet, again, from the last known position. I didn't want to display this video in this presentation, but if folks email me, I'd be more than happy to share this video of this target with you. I think it's a really nice target for folks to understand what the blue view will give you as far as searching. This target, I mean, we looked at hundreds, if not thousands, of different targets on the bottom during that search, and when we saw this target, it literally jumps out at you. It was very easy to determine what it was, and we knew that it was what we were looking for. We then, when the current was right, we swam over to him, used the manipulator, and then hand over hand the tether and the victim to the surface. Getting to the surface, put a line on him, and then to get him up on the ice. Basic SAR operations accessory package. This would be a great package for folks to use, and this is primarily what I use day in and day out for drowning victim recoveries. There's a lot of other things you can add to this that are very nice, and we can cover some of those things in a bit. But kind of the starter victim recovery and evidence recovery package would be a Blueview V900 130 imaging sonar, which is exactly the image that you saw just a minute ago. That's from a 130 imaging sonar. Manipulator arm. I've been using the standard manipulator arm. We now have a new one, which I'll cover here in a little bit. Recovery and retrieval kit. We have a recovery and retrieval kit that's very nice with, you can, with snap carabiners in there that we can hook onto things if you're trying to recover things from down there. You can get a lot done with that without having to put anybody in the water. The Pro 4 maintenance kit. That's very nice to have on hand. You know, you have a seal go bad or scratch up a dome. You can go ahead and replace that on the scene. And if worse comes to worse with those main domes, you can replace the front and back and get a better dome on there. Tether, the 40 meter, which is 131 feet of neutral performance tether, that's typically the tether I use that I hook to the ROV. It's a little smaller diameter, and it's very flexible. It doesn't have a lot of memory, so it's really nice to use. And then if I want to go a greater distance, I'll then hook the 250 foot or the 75 meter of standard neutral tether on, and that gives you some great distance, and you can get a lot done with that. And there's if you're doing a lot of stuff where you're going to be working over the ice and stuff, you can add tether to that as well. And for that, I would use negative tether. And again, we can cover that here in a minute. The 15-inch daylight viewable display. This display is really, really, really nice. Especially a lot of times you're working out of a boat on a sunny day, and you can literally view this in daylight, which is tough to do with these screens, as I'm sure all of you have dealt with laptop computers and such. And an inverter. Inverters are nice if you don't have a generator handy. Again, I like the Honda 2000 watt generator, but this would include the inverter, which you can hook to a 12 volt battery, and away you go. VideoRay ROV system. This is the package that I'm using, which is the integrated control panel, tether, and the submersible. I have the display in the panel, like I just mentioned, and the computer, so I'm able to view sonar and the video at the same time, which is really helpful to have two big displays like that. As I find a target on the sonar, I get up close, I then switch to video. It's a matter of just looking up or down depending on what screen I have it on, and then go ahead and set up the mirror plater if I want to pick something up. So it works out really well. Here's a little more information on the sonar. And again, all of this information is available on our website, or if you email me, I can send it out to you. And at the end of this, you'll have my contact information. So if you want to call and discuss some of this stuff, if there's things that I didn't cover, absolutely feel free to do that, or go ahead and type in questions that you might have, and I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. But you can see this, the airplane is in really great detail. The shipwreck here is in really great detail. And here's what it looks like when it's on the ROV. It hooks just below the main sub, and it works extremely well. Here's the standard manipulator, and this is a manipulator I've been using for many years. It's worked very well. The new one does some things that I really like, and I'll cover that right now. This one, the head actually rotates. So when you're down there and you get to a target you want to pick up, it might be a drowning victim, it might be evidence, and you're thinking, oh no, I got to turn my manipulator arm so it opens up and down versus side to side. So you have to bring it back to the surface and change it. With this, you twist the joystick on your controller, and it rotates, and you can then open and close it and grab your target, and away you go. It also comes with 5 heads. The parallel jaw, which is the jaw that I use most of the time, the V jaw, the sampler jaw for picking up if you want to take a sample of what's on the bottom, the trident jaw, which is actually 3 small arms, and the cutter jaw, which is nice for cutting line, or at times you may have somebody that's weighted and you want to cut those weights free of that person, whether it's a suicide or homicide. You can do that with this and then bring them up. The maintenance kits include all the parts necessary to maintain your VideoRay equipment. Main domes, cartridge seals, propeller kit for the Pro 4, thruster nozzle assembly, ballast brass rods for the Pro 4, O-ring kit, hardwire kit for the Pro 4, light domes, thruster, vertical splitter. questions? Max depth, one of the questions was what is the max depth of the Pro 4? The Pro 4 max depth is 1,000 feet. The Pro 3 was 500 feet, and that's the reason that we use the Pro 4 on this Wyoming search. They own a Pro 3, but the max depth is 500 feet, so they asked me to come out with the Pro 4 to do that searching, which exceeded the 500-foot threshold. Here is my contact information. Thank you very much for joining us today. Again, my name is Tom Crossmon, and my email is tom.crossmon@VideoRay.com. My office number and cell number are there. If you folks are working on something, you think that I can possibly help with it, you have questions on it, feel free to call me anytime. I'm more than happy to help folks that are out in the field and have questions on something they're working on.